Welcome to the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. I'm your host, FoodTech marketing expert Megan Thomas. FoodTech Stories features the leaders pioneering new approaches to technology, collaboration, and storytelling in the food tech and ag tech space. Food and agricultural changing, and fresh ideas and leadership are needed to sustainably feed the growing global population. Join us every other week as we talk to a founder, operator, or visionary in food and agriculture. Our guest today is Keith Bearden, and Keith is CEO of Alter Eco, a company that balances craveable food with social purpose. Welcome to the Food Tech Stories podcast, Keith.
Glad to be here.
What first brought you to food?
I didn't start out my career in food, for sure. I started my career in IT. My undergraduate degree is in computer science, actually. In 1997, my wife and I decided we were going to move to where we wanted to live and we would find a job later. So we moved to the Pacific Northwest. We wound up settling in Newberg, Oregon, which is in the edge of the Willamette Valley, really, in wine country. And I started my own consulting business. And if you know anything about the Pacific Northwest, it's full of little food and beverage companies. I started out with an IT focus, helping those small to mid-sized companies figure out how to navigate the challenges of ERP systems and CRM systems and things like that. So many of my clients were food and beverage. About 3 years into running this consulting company, one of my clients, Yogi Tea, asked me to take over their international operations. And I sold my business, which it still exists today. So that was a pretty good testament that we started something that had some longevity. Moved to Hamburg, Germany, and ran Yogi Tea's international operations for a little over 6 years. And I've been in food and beverage ever since then.
And how do you see food and beverage as a sector? How is it different from other industries that you've worked in?
Well, number one, the margins are smaller.
That is true.
Number two, it's such commodity driven. And with climate change, there's such a significant impact on the entire supply chain. It doesn't really matter what you're producing. You walk into a grocery store and you look at anything on the shelves there, they're impacted by climate change.
I want to share a bit about or learn a bit more about Alter Eco and the work that you're doing there. What can you tell me about the company?
Alter Eco has been around for a little more than 20 years. It was founded by a couple of guys that really had a mission of helping the farmers figure out how to bring some of their products to market from the Latin American area. So most of our products come out of Ecuador, Dominican Republic, Peru, those regions. They were bringing in items like quinoa, which we still have a line of quinoa, rice and coffee. And chocolate became kind of the major focus of the brand. For all intensive purposes, we're known as a chocolate company. Alter Eco has always been guided by 3 core principles: restoring ecosystems, hence the name Alter Eco, improving livelihoods, and our chocolates are all Fair for Life certified, which is even a little bit more stringent than fair trade, and then reducing waste. And so if you look at all of our products, our chocolate and our granola and quinoa products, our chocolate, everything except the foil wrapper around the bar is compostable. Even our little truffles, we make a lot of little truffles. Our truffles are wrapped in a backyard compostable wrapper. We're the only company in the world that does that. That's kind of been the founding pillars of the company since the beginning. Restoring ecosystems is a big part of what we focus on. We just published our Regen report. So we publish a report every year, and you can go to our website and find it. We're very transparent in what we do. We try to source, our goal is to source 100% of our cacao beans from regenerative farms. We're at about 75% now, and we're helping farmers make that transition. We have a couple active projects, one in Dominican Republic right now, focused on converting about 200 acres. It's really not regenerative farming the way we think of it with grains. It's more of dynamic agroforestry is what we refer to. Cacao is not an annual crop. A cacao plant will live for 50, 60, 70 years. The goal is to introduce other crops around it, like coconut trees or bananas or plantains or avocados, and have that thriving ecosystem support each other. In cases of severe drought, for example, then The bigger trees, even timber trees for that matter, but plantains and coconuts, they have much deeper roots, and so they'll draw up more groundwater. Their leaves will protect the cacao plants with some shade. In times of too much rain, the cacao plants will actually consume a lot of that water. If you ever opened up a cacao pod, it's very wet inside. And the more water they get, to a degree, it can get too much, it supports the growth of the cacao pods. So that whole ecosystem works together. And the other thing it does in helping us achieve our second pillar of improving livelihoods is that most of those plants that I mentioned create another cash crop for the farmers.
You have the ecosystem level biodiversity and creating more resilient ecosystems, but you also have the economic opportunity that that can present as well. And does that typically benefit that one producer, or is it a more ecosystem wide benefit economically?
It's actually ecosystem wide because we buy from probably, I don't know, 15 or 16,000 individual farmers, but we buy through co-ops. It would be impossible to approach that many farmers. But by working with these co-ops, you start with one farm and then it starts to migrate and they start to see the success of the other farmers around them. Then the co-ops become a real partner in terms of education, providing the plants to help the farmers expand to the other cash crops. Project we're doing in Dominican Republic right now, we're actually providing the farmers with coconut saplings, and it'll take them 5 or 6 years to mature and produce. But there's a big deficiency of coconut availability in the Dominican Republic, and they're importing coconuts. That does two things. One, the emissions of importing them, because they're bringing them mostly from Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia. And so you've got the transport of them, and then you've got the cost. By outfitting these farmers to be able to grow coconuts themselves, you help the overall ecosystem by reducing emissions and you provide more revenue.
So you're actually at Alter Eco providing the physical resources, but also the intellectual capital or the know-how of how to actually make these things work.
Exactly.
I imagine that that is quite an investment for you. So how do you think about that economically and how it delivers value for your company?
It is an investment. It's a big investment. We just believe that that's the conscious capitalism aspect and the stewardship of who we are. We're B Corp certified company. We've been B Corp certified since 2009. We were one of the very, very early adopters. We're climate neutral. We're plastic neutral. Our ethos is just to leave the world a better place than we found it, and we won't do anything that strays away from that. There are some things that, from an economics perspective, we can't justify them. We have a line of granola. We would love to be rock certified, and we're using regenerative certified oats, but all of the other ingredients at this point are so expensive or not available in regenerative certified. We're continuing to look at those things. We're also looking at compostable packaging for our granola. Today, we use post-consumer recycled plastic, and we work with a group called Repurpose to offset all the plastics that we put into the environment, even down to our shrink wrap and tape on our boxes. We would love to have a compostable package for our granola, but it's not there yet. It's not economically feasible, and it doesn't really provide the integrity of the product. Our granola doesn't have any sugar in it. It's sweetened with fruit. Fruit requires a little more product integrity than cane sugar. It'll go rancid quicker. So we have to have a good barrier protection for our products.
I've worked in natural and organic products throughout my career as well. And packaging has proven to be a challenge. If you want to do sustainable packaging, that can be defined many different ways. It's very, very challenging to get the economies of scale you need to pay that out. I appreciate your efforts to do that. Themes like sustainability, regenerative agriculture, there's a lot of discussion in America right now about these themes. Your company has been doing this work for decades. I applaud you for sticking to your guns and sticking to those values that were there when the company was created. How do you think about kind of the changing narrative or larger ecosystem you're working in and the work that you do at Alter Eco?
Alter Eco's been doing this for decades, and we've stood on those principles forever, and we'll continue to. I brought in some new marketing resources mid last year. One of my first questions that I got from our new marketing director was, describe Alter Eco for me in one word. No, I don't know if I can do that. I said, organic. She's like, okay, yeah, fine. I said, regenerative. She's like, no, 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 you lost me. She's like, why do people buy chocolate? Well, because it's indulgent and they love it. And she's like, then that's what we need to tell people. Alter Eco is such a serious brand, and you've always been a serious brand, and you've got a set of loyal followers that will never stray from Alter Eco. But you want to grow your base, and people buy chocolate because it tastes good. And Alter Eco tastes great. All of our chocolates are manufactured in Switzerland. Anytime I tell somebody that our chocolates are Swiss made, they're like, oh my God, the Swiss make wonderful chocolate. That's why we work with one of the best manufacturers in the world. We've shifted our communication a little bit to say, Alter Eco tastes great. We will deliver the best tasting product you can buy. Oh, and by the way, you're helping to save the planet. So you can feel good about that indulgence because you're supporting a company that does good things. So it's a little bit shift in our narrative. It's interesting. I was at a conference not too long ago where someone from Nielsen got up. They said they analyzed buying habits, obviously. They said in the baby boomers, they would say they wanted to do good things, but what they did was kind of over here. They called it the say-do gap. With the millennials, it got smaller, but with the Gen Z and Gen Alphas, there is no gap. If they say they're going to do it, they do it. We're speaking to those consumers to say, we're going to deliver the best quality, best tasting product you've ever had, and we're going to support our sustainability goals.
Going toward the consumer, I definitely wanted to delve deeper in there, so thank you for taking us there, Keith. The way we think about eco, or what you could have called green positioning in the 90s, it is different today. Consumers are looking for different product level attributes, but also different things from their brands. How are you thinking about those shifting consumer preferences and how you're going to be addressing them from a product level of delivering great products, but also from like a Alter Eco brand level?
Transparency. My marketing team says all the time, show your receipts. We got to show our receipts. And that's why we publish a regen report. We are very transparent in everything we do. If anybody wants to know about where our beans come from, we'll take them to the farms. If they want to see the traceability, we can follow it every step of the way. That's what the new consumers, if you will, are looking for. I was talking to a retailer and he said they observe consumer habits in the store. And one of the things that they've noticed is that the younger consumers are actually standing at the aisle, in the aisleway, scanning QR codes with their phones to read about this brand if they don't know about it. We're very active in trying to push that message out there. Things like this podcast are a perfect platform for us to talk about what we're doing, and we're pushing that message really hard. I brought on a PR firm last year, and in the last 6 months, they just gave me our 6-month review for the first half of the year. We've had over 1.4 billion press impressions. Now, everybody's not reading everything about us, but we're hitting the market. We're making noise about what we're doing. We're focused on trying to spread the message and working with other brands that are doing some of the same things. There's a lot of other great brands out there that are doing some similar sustainability message, and we're working alongside of them, partnering with them and doing some joint marketing, some joint messaging.
And what are you hearing from retailers directly about purpose-driven or sustainability-oriented products?
It depends on the retailer.
Fair, fair.
The natural channel is, of course, committed. We get quite a few accolades from, the likes of the Whole Foods and Sprouts and natural grocers of the world. The conventional market is starting to be more aggressive in adopting sustainable, mission-driven, impact-driven brands. We've gotten great reception from some of the club channel retailers recently because they're looking for that to bring consumers into that space and not lose them to a natural channel. We have a good presence in the conventional channel, but it's in certain regions. Our goal is really to drive our products into the conventional retailers on a national level. We just were awarded listings in Loblaws in Canada on a national level. So that's great success in Canada.
So you're focused on grocery, but also club and mass?
Yeah. I mean, that's the white space for Alter Eco. We've been in the natural channel. We're the number 3 chocolate overall. And if you narrow it down to dark chocolate, we're right there at number 1. And we only do dark chocolate.
I want to loop back on climate change, which is something you brought up right at the top of the conversation. Tropical crops are being seriously impacted by a changing climate, and cacao is one of those crops. How are you looking ahead, looking out obviously for the interest of your firm, but also thinking about your grower partners as we deal with a changing climate?
I'm sure you've seen all the news about the price of cacao. It went from $3,500 a ton for years and years and years and years to over $12,000, $13,000 a ton last year. And it's still trading at around $9,000 a ton today. It's never going to go back down to 3,500. Nobody has any false inclinations that that's going to happen. But it was driven by climate change, primarily by the African plantations that were clear cut 50 years ago, and they've been impacted significantly by climate change. We source, as I mentioned earlier, we source most of ours out of Latin America. We're not seeing the same level of impact, but we're working very, very closely with our farmers to make sure that we can support them and that we have those long-term commitments. Because as supplies drop out of Africa, the big guys are coming into Latin America and buying up everything they can get their hands on. Fortunately, we have long-term relationships and loyalties, but we're also expanding into other regions. We're looking into Colombia. We're looking into Peru, Brazil, Madagascar even. Is A, the availability there, B, is the quality something that would fit Alter Eco's quality standards, and can we work with the local farmers? I had a call that just this morning with a group out of Colombia and reviewing some of the opportunities to work with farmers directly in Colombia.
Great. Sounds like those relationships are paying off for you and having that on the ground involvement.
It does. I mean, we travel to meet with our co-ops and our farmers at least once a year and sometimes twice, depending on what's happening in the marketplace. I'll be heading back to Dominican Republic in September and Ecuador in November, negotiating our prices and looking forward to what 2026 is going to bring.
We also talk about themes around food tech, how emerging technologies are applied to creating and producing innovative new foods. So, how is Alter Eco applying technology these days in new and different ways?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of R&D projects from some of the bigger players looking at chocolate alternatives. And I've actually talked to several of these companies, and that's not Alter Eco. That's not who we are from a chocolate perspective. But I think you're going to see a shift away from using cacao in certain products that is going to help some with the supply chain. You've got less reliance on cacao and using carob or other products in products that aren't pure chocolate bars. The way we measure that is actually through satellite imagery. So I can look at a satellite image of a region and say, this is where we buy our cacao beans. And you can very clearly see what's forested and what's not. And that's the way we measure it. And then we identify those regions and we say, okay, this is the co-op that works with this region. Let's go in and work with them to identify those areas that we can convert to agroforestry. That's how we generate some of these projects that we use. Everybody talks about AI and its impact on the marketplace. We use it from a marketing perspective. We use it to help us come up with marketing ideas, flavor profiles, and things of that nature, because it can generate so much data so quickly. We launched 2 new truffle thins. We have a line of truffle thins, and we launched 2 new flavors this year, sweet ginger and passion fruit. Those were kind of some of the first ideas that AI generated for us. And you wouldn't necessarily think of ginger as a product, but ginger's such a trending flavor profile right now that we kind of used a sweet ginger and put it into a chocolate bar, and it's amazing.
I want to try that. Thank you for breaking that down. So, Keith, I know that you've been CEO of many different companies and types of companies. When you look back over that experience, what have you really learned, or what are those key takeaways from your diverse CEO experiences?
Don't undervalue your product. It takes a lot to manufacture a chocolate bar, just like it takes a lot to manufacture a box of tea, a bag of coffee. as brand owners, we're so focused on trying to get that listing that we'll play the price game. And the race to the bottom is just that, the bottom. Alter Eco is a premium product. It's made by hardworking farmers in Latin America. It's made by great chocolatiers in Switzerland. And not to mention all the logistics costs associated with moving it from one place to another. So we're going to charge for it. It's a value product, and value by not a value purchase, but a premium value. Don't be afraid to charge for what your product is actually worth. I took my CFO to one of the plantations and through a chocolate manufacturing facility, and he had never been in one. And he came out of it and he's like, this bar ought to cost $50 for as much it goes into making it. Consumers won't pay $50 for it, but they will pay 5 or 6 or 7. And you have to respect the value creation that goes into it. The other thing I tell people all the time is, and not just as a CEO, everybody in the company has to think like an owner. If you think like an owner, you'll usually make the right decisions. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. But if you think like an owner, you're going to put everything into perspective. And I learned that earlier in my career where I was in IT and I went into the owner. It was a privately held company. And I went into the owner and started explaining how we needed to spend a couple $1 million on a network upgrade. And he stopped me and said, I don't understand any of this and I don't want to. I just have one question for you. If this was your money, would you spend it? And I said, absolutely. I'll never bring you anything that I wouldn't do if it were my company. He said, then go do what you need to do. That lesson, that interaction made me think you always have to think like an owner, every level in the company. I'm also very transparent. I mean, my whole team knows what our profit margins are. They know what our costs are. They know everything about it. And I think that helps them make better decisions as well.
Those are great takeaways. Thank you for sharing those, Keith. So when you look ahead to the future, what are you most excited about?
The growth is a big part of it, but I think there's opportunities to bring Alter Eco to a number of different categories as well. I mentioned our granola. We tested the consumer, if you will, to say, will you follow Alter Eco into a different category? They did.
Yeah, brand extendability. Yeah.
They did overwhelmingly. There are a number of categories that we're exploring right now that I'm pretty excited about. Can't share those yet. Those are kind of the strategic plans.
Got it. Yeah.
But there's a number of categories that we're really excited about expanding the brand into and creating more of an omni-channel brand. Chocolate doesn't ship well, but during the wintertime, if it's too cold and then you bring it inside, it'll get that white coating on it. We call it blooming. And that's really just oxidization, and it doesn't hurt the product, but it doesn't look good. We're excited about other categories that may help us bolster our e-commerce business as well.
I've enjoyed our conversation. How can people find out more about the work at Alter Eco?
Our website is alterecofoods.com. There is an altereco.com. That's the European side of the business. You can also find us on Amazon. You can find us in any natural food store across the country and in Canada.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Keith. Take care. Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly episodes. I'm your host, Megan Thomas, founder of Ladris 17. FoodTech Stories is edited by TJG Media.